If you're watching this video, you've probably seen the title, and maybe you're watching this video because you're ready to prove me wrong, or maybe it just piqued your interest. Yes, I'm making the claim that learning styles do not exist, at least in the way that they've been mentioned to us. For those of you who watch my channel, this is a channel about decision-making, problem-solving, clear thinking, navigating cognitive biases and logical fallacies. It's about learning to be better decision makers and use our brain more effectively in the world for those literal and metaphorical treasure hunts in our lives. And that's what I'm about here. This is not an education video, but this is an idea that was introduced to many of us in the school system. I want to tackle it directly and see where it might take us. If you were a student in the education system in the last 20 to 30 years, or you had a kid go through the education system, there is a very good chance, almost 100% chance, that you've heard someone talking about the power and the key to discovering your or your kid's learning style. The idea is that every person is like an auditory learner, a visual learner, or a kinesthetic learner. You learn by doing. And if you tap into that person's learning style, they can learn anything. So if you're in a reading class and you want to teach someone to read and they're a bodily kinesthetic reader, make reading bodily kinesthetic. And if you're in a math class and someone is a visual learner, make sure you use visuals more. That's where it would lead oftentimes. And so what that's done is it's created a generation of people who believe that they have these natural learning styles. If something comes to them outside of that learning style, if I'm introduced to auditory content and I'm a bodily kinesthetic learner, that somehow I'm at a huge disadvantage, or I'm not going to be able to learn it that way, or I have to find some way to translate it into my learning style to make it work. But here is the hard truth. Learning styles don't exist, not in that way. There have been over 30 solid studies to test and see whether introducing content to someone in their learning style will actually improve their learning. And the reality is it doesn't. Zero impact upon them actually learning the content, catering to their supposed learning style. I know it's hard to believe, so you can check it out for yourself. Search in your favorite search engine or look online for the actual studies, and you will find that it doesn't exist. Now, there is one exception, and so I'll acknowledge that there are preferences to learning. Some people like listening more than kinesthetic or visual kinds of things. Some people seem to have a greater interest in one over the other. And interest does lead to motivation. If I tap into something where you're more motivated, you're more likely to pay attention, and that can have positive benefits. But here's the downside. If you cater to someone's learning style, you may actually hinder their ability to learn something. This is relevant to everybody. This is not just about school. This is about solving problems in our life, learning in the workplace, whether you're in gameplay, trying to figure out something, or doing research for a house project or something else. If you're always tying yourself down to what you think is your learning style, you are going to miss out. And there are going to be some things that you have a huge problem learning. In fact, you'll probably never make it over that hump and learn certain things. For example, trying to learn a new language requires certain kinds of learning that work way better than others. If you want to learn to work on cars and you say, well, I'm an auditory learner, so I just need to listen to lectures on how to fix a car, you will never learn how to fix a car just being an auditory learner. You're going to actually have to get your hands dirty. There are different forms of teaching each thing. So the difference here is it's not what your learning style is, it's what style of teaching and learning best helps you master or discover a particular thing. If you don't get beyond the learning style model, you're going to put yourself in this kind of learning rut that keeps you from actually discovering real truths that are all around you. So as usual, I jotted down 5 points that I want to leave with you. Maybe consider. The first one I wrote down is people stop learning new skills because they think the method doesn't match their style. Adults oftentimes avoid certain categories of learning. Maybe it's coding or finance or logic or learning a new language simply because it doesn't fit their preferred style of learning as they were told. They assume that they just can't learn that way. But you can. You absolutely can. And for people who get over that hump and they learn that it just takes some time, it's like when you sit down to play an instrument. Imagine if you sat down to play the piano and you wanted to play this beautiful piece of music. So you sit down, you play it one time, and then you determine that pianos don't work because the music doesn't sound very good. That's Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And if you said that you're going to learn to play the piano because you're an auditory learner by just listening to lectures on the piano, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get there. You're going to have to get your hands on those keys and have someone give you feedback. And there's certain ways of learning instruments that work better than others. Certain ways of learning languages, problem solving, and solving riddles. Every domain has certain ways of learning that are in fact more effective than others. It gives people false confidence in a method that feels comfortable instead of the one that actually improves your learning. Someone may choose a whole bunch of YouTube videos over a written guide because they're visual learners, but it's not necessarily what's going to help you actually learn it. Maybe the manual is the best way to learn that particular thing. The third thing is it blinds people to the real reason that they're struggling. Sometimes people have this idea, well, I'm a visual learner, so this auditory thing is just not going to work for me. But the real thing is learning is complex. You need to build background knowledge, get to know the vocabulary and the structure, the domain of that body of learning, and do it in any and every way that you can. And that's going to help you actually learn and grow. The learning style can actually kind of prevent us from getting where we want to go. Fourth one I jotted down is that it can lead to confirmation bias. People notice only the methods that feel good to them and not the ones that actually work. So you start skipping the knowledge or the information that requires a different mode of learning than what you consider to be your learning style. So you have a learning blind spot that keeps you from solving the problem or discovering that literal or metaphorical treasure if you just stay fixated on that learning style concept. So it's time to just let it go. The fifth one is it narrows thinking by convincing people that they have one correct way to learn instead of building the flexibility that really great problem solvers rely upon. You can be an auditory learner. You can be a bodily kinesthetic learner. You can be a visual learner. And different kinds of learning benefits from different kinds of teaching, different kinds of learning activities. If we just lean into that, we're going to be far better off. If you're bought into the idea of being a clear thinker, a better problem solver, overcoming cognitive biases and logical fallacies, and creating new things, discovering new things, then I would say it's time to leave the learning styles behind. I hope you find this useful. I look forward to your comments.